Arsenal are definitely in the market to bring in a forward player.
Someone we've been talking about all summer, Frankie de Jong. What's the latest on that one? Is there still a chance this could happen before the deadline?
I think I'm going to be talking about this guy until deadline day, because on the face of it, it doesn't look likely that it can happen, simply because the £72 million that they set aside and that they agreed with Barcelona is effectively being spent on Casemiro, because Casemiro's deal is £60 million plus £10 million in add-ons. However, United will always have a budget for certain positions. So on the face of it, it looks like they have spent their budget on a midfielder. But if Barcelona, and remember, they're still struggling to register Jules Koundé. This is why this Aubameyang deal, they want it to be a straight cash deal, as opposed to Chelsea putting Marcos Alonso in the equation as well, simply because they need that money to be able to register Jules Koundé. I mean, for a massive club like this, for us to even be talking about Barcelona in this manner is absolutely crazy. I mean, privately, they're saying that they want to sell him, even though publicly they have played him. Yes, they played him and they said that they're happy with him and they want him to stay. However, if they were to offer him to United after all of this, then even though United have spent all their money on Casemiro, I'm sure that Manchester United would find a way to try and structure a deal whereby they could still bring in Frankie de Jong. Because remember, Frankie de Jong has been the #1 target for Erik ten Hag throughout the summer transfer window. And for them to be offered Frankie de Jong in what remains of the transfer window, and then to rebuff that chance to sign him, I just can't see that happening, that United would refuse the chance. But the three words that I've been using in the last couple of weeks, more to give me a bit of wriggle room as well, is that you can never say never with Frankie de Jong, and you just can never say never with a lot of transfers in the window, because there are, I mean, who would have thought that Manchester United would have been spending close to £70 million on Casemiro? That wasn't even being mooted until about a week ago. So look, funny things happen in the last few days of a transfer window, and I think United will still have their eyes open. I just wonder if something changed after the first two games for Manchester United in what humiliating circumstances. I just wonder whether that had changed the attitude at Old Trafford, and whether Erik ten Hag then went to the board and said, look, we're in a bit of trouble here. Let's go try and get our first target again. So I think what happened then is United have gone back in late, and, you know, they've made a bid of 80 million euros, which I think potentially might have been accepted earlier in this transfer window, simply because if you're doing that deal in the middle of June at the start of July, then the team that you're buying from has got plenty of time to be able to replace a player like Antony. I think the later it's got in the window and that United have gone in, Ajax are probably smelling a little bit of desperation, because if United are coming back with 80 million euros with 2 weeks of the window left, then Ajax are thinking, well, hold on, we're not going to accept 80 million euros now. I think United are getting a lot of encouragement, though, from the Antony side of this deal, simply because the information I was told on Sunday ahead of that game against Sparta Rotterdam, when he was left out of that squad, the manager said, look, he wasn't focused. The information I got was that he wasn't mentally ready to play in that football match. Now, since then, there's been little Instagram posts, social media posts of Antony and his agent watching that game on TV between Manchester United and Liverpool. You know, people read all sorts into that kind of thing, don't they? But I mean, look, I think a lot of people around the world were watching that game. He just decided to make it public. But little things like that will encourage Manchester United, because the feeling is that he wants to leave Ajax and he wants to go to Manchester United. He knows Erik ten Hag very, very well. He wants to reunite. It just will come down now to whether Manchester United can raise that price. Ajax may find themselves in a situation soon, the later this gets, of Antony really agitating the club to say, look, please just let me go, because look, you got me for a fraction of what Manchester United are willing to pay. I think United will be going for Gakpo, whether it's as an alternative to Antony or an addition. I've not been told one way or the other. just yet. So I don't think you can rule out United trying to get both. They are also, albeit an outside bet, going for Christian Pulisic. Now, I just wonder whether that one would be more viable to do if they brought in Antony. Because if you're buying Antony for £80 million, say, for example, then having to spend another £35 million on Gakpo, that could be one of those situations where may not work budget-wise. But if you're going for Christian Pulisic on a loan deal and Antony on a permanent deal, just the figures there, you're just talking about wages and a small loan fee. Potentially, that is a kind of double deal that, you know, could be a realistic one. I just wonder whether Chelsea would want to do business with Manchester United, though. Do they consider United a direct rival for that top four? Potentially, yes. Would they be improving Manchester United if they loan Pulisic to them? Potentially, yes. So I think there's a lot of negotiating and a lot of talks before we get to the stage where Pulisic could potentially become a United player. Goalkeeper, 100% they want to strengthen before the end of the transfer window. Dean Henderson, of course, has gone on loan to Nottingham Forest. They want a pool of 3 goalkeepers, do United, whereby all 3 are capable of going into the first team, possibly initially to come in as a number 2 to challenge David De Gea. But who knows, you know, to provide enough competition to think, well, De Gea, your position might be under threat here because we've got another quality goalkeeper coming in. It just reminds me a little bit of when Arsenal brought in Aaron Ramsdale, and he was brought in as a number 2. And then when he came into the team, he took his chance and he was playing more in the style of what Arteta wanted his team to play like compared to Bernd Leno. And Bernd Leno, since then, of course, was definitely the number 2 at Arsenal and now has gone on to Fulham. The couple that they have been interested in, Jan Sommer from Borussia Mönchengladbach, the Swiss number 1 as well. Not sure that he would 100% want to come to United only because he is the number 1 for his country and his club just now with the World Cup only a few months away. Switzerland, of course, in the World Cup. He'd want to maintain a number 1 position. The other one that's come from our colleagues at Sky in Germany was Kevin Trapp from Eintracht Frankfurt. That's another keeper that United are interested in. 32 years old. That one might have more legs than the summer one. I just think that they have got other targets as well. I think they're looking at a number of goalkeepers because it feels like this time in this position, it's a specific role. Who's going to be satisfied to come in initially as a number 2, but given the assurances that, you know, if you perform well, then there's a chance that you can play for the first team.
How many more signings are West Ham potentially looking at before the deadline?
I still think they'll be in the market to bring in a few. They've already signed 6. Emerson will be 7. And if you think about what that will take their spending to, it will be more than £120 million. This is the biggest outlay in any window for West Ham United. Hans Vanaken is another player that they are after, the Club Bruges midfielder. They've had a €10 million bid rejected. They will go in for an improved offer because they do want the player, and the encouragement they're getting from the player himself publicly would suggest that the deal is there to be done, because he played for Club Bruges on Sunday and in a post-match interview said, look, there are talks and talks will continue. His thinking, and he publicly said it, is this could be my last chance to get a move to the Premier League to a club like West Ham United. I think I want to take that step. One, potentially to look out for, even though he did start the game for Chelsea against Leeds on Sundays, Conor Gallagher. And I know West Ham United have got an interest in him. Whether Chelsea will allow that deal to happen is another matter. But, you know, maybe one to keep an eye on.
Let's have a quick line on Newcastle as well. João Pedro seems to be the one that's, you know, they're pretty much full steam ahead going for. What do we think the latest is on that one? Is that one getting any closer to an agreement?
Just got a bit of information just before we were speaking. And the information that I've got is there is now a new bid on the table from Newcastle United. We think it's worth around £30 million, including add-ons. Not agreed yet. Watford, we think, are considering this offer. And what's being considered is whether they're happy with the structure of the payments, but also the add-ons, and whether those add-ons are achievable ones for João Pedro, because I think there might be an element of Champions League qualification in those add-ons and regular Champions League qualification in those add-ons for Watford to have to receive some of those payments. They see him as a young player who's got plenty of potential, plenty of resale value as well if he was to come into Newcastle United and do well. Watford, very reluctant to let him go. They had no intention of selling him, but when someone comes in with a deal that's touching £30 million for someone who's barely played for them in comparison to other players, I think Watford are going to weigh things up and think, look, this is good money at this stage. Let's see what we could do with that money in bringing other players in. Naby Keita is not happy with this situation. As you mentioned there, look, Keita is in to the final year of his contract. There's no sign of him, extending that contract just now. And very interesting what happened yesterday. Wasn't in the squad at all for that game at Old Trafford. And Jurgen Klopp said, look, it was a crazy injury that he got. He just fell and he hurt himself. Now, a lot of people have been, putting two and two together and thinking that doesn't sound right, But I think Liverpool's position is, with so little time left in this transfer window, a lot of people are saying, look, regardless of Keita's situation, Liverpool need to strengthen that midfield area. Thiago's injured. It's a bit of a hole in that midfield for Liverpool. And I just wonder whether Jurgen Klopp would even consider allowing Keita to leave, given the situation there, unless there is something happening in the background whereby Liverpool have got someone else who can come straight in. Their long-term target, as we all know, is Jude Bellingham. I would be doubtful whether Dortmund would want to do any kind of business in this transfer window over Jude Bellingham unless they received an offer that they couldn't refuse. Number one, there's definitely interest in him. As far as Wolves are concerned, they've got no intention of selling in this transfer window, and their stance is that he is not for sale. However, money talks. It just depends if Arsenal were to make that interest formal, how much they would test that resolve of Wolves by going in with whatever money they thought they deemed fit for Pedro Neto. But remember, Arsenal are definitely in the market to bring in a forward player. Even though they've spent big in this transfer window, only Chelsea have spent more, I think, and they were the biggest spenders last summer. They are backing Mikel Arteta. But if you go back to earlier on in this summer, they were prepared to pay in excess of £50 million for Rafinha from Leeds United. Chelsea then nicked in, and then eventually he went to Barcelona. But the fact of the matter was, because they were prepared to spend that much money, would suggest that there is an opening and a priority that Mikel Arteta might want to fill in that position. I think it would help if the Nicolas Pepe situation was resolved. It wouldn't be the be all or end all if he was to stay at the club, because I think whether he stays or not, Arsenal want to strengthen in that position. But to get his wages off the bill and maybe get a loan fee and a guarantee of an option or an obligation price for Nicolas Pepe would help when they were trying to find another player in that position. Maybe in the future, Arsenal go back in, who knows?